Today I am sharing all of the top favorite recipes from this year with you. These are the top yummiest recipes. You're also getting it all today. Slow cooker meals, sheet pan meals, one pot meals, and so much more. Let's get to my kitchen. Let's get to cooking. I am not joking when I tell you this Zuppa Toscana casserole is the best casserole I think I have ever had in my entire life. It's at least in the top 5 favorites for me, I guess, right now. It is just like Zuppa Toscana soup, but in a casserole form. It is amazing. I'm starting out by cooking up my 8 ounces of bacon. Now I'm going to chop up my kale, onion, and peel and thinly slice my potatoes. Now that my bacon is cooked through, I'm adding it to a plate and I'm going to set this plate to the side. I'm going to reserve about a tablespoon of the grease from the bacon in my pan, and I'm going to add my sausage into the pan. I'm also going to add in a diced onion, and I'm going to break the sausage up and cook it through. Cooking the sausage with the bacon grease and the onion just gives the sausage so much flavor. This casserole is like I said, just like Zuppa Toscana soup, but just so much better in my opinion, and I'm a huge fan of Zuppa Toscana soup. Once the sausage is cooked through, add in a half a cup of all-purpose flour, stir it around until it no longer looks white. It'll take about a minute or two, and then after it no longer looks white, you're going to slowly add in 4 cups of chicken broth. The reason why you want to add it in slowly is just so the sauce comes out super smooth and silky in the end. After you add your broth in there, you're going to add in your heavy cream. So go ahead and add in 1 cup of heavy cream, give this a stir, and let it simmer on your stove for about 5 minutes to thicken up. Now that your sauce has slightly thickened up, spray a 9x13 baking dish with nonstick spray, and then you're going to add your potatoes to the bottom of the baking dish. The reason why I like to add the potatoes to the bottom of the baking dish is just so they cook evenly and they will cook the best on the bottom. And then over the top of the potatoes, you're going to add your kale. The kale is going to wilt down wonderfully, I promise. And then add the crumbled cooked bacon over the top of the kale. And then over the top of the bacon, you're going to add your sausage mixture. Just pour it over the top, and then you're going to kind of spread that sausage mixture out a little bit. You don't want to move the potatoes around. You want to keep the potatoes at the bottom of the baking dish. Just, move the sausage mixture out so it's kind of in an even layer. You're going to sprinkle the top with about 3/4 cup of Parmesan cheese, and you're going to cover this tightly with foil. This will bake in a preheated oven to 375 degrees for about 50 minutes. After 50 minutes, remove the foil and just bake it for about 10 more minutes uncovered. When I say this is one of the best casseroles you will ever have, I am not joking. It is just like Zuppa Toscana soup, but in my opinion, it is significantly better, if that could even be a thing. It is rich, it is delicious, it is filling, it is so warm and cozy, and it is so perfect for this time of year. You need to give it a try. I often get requests for like super kid-friendly dinner options, and in the past 3 weeks, I have made this 3 times. It is that good. Both of my little ones ask for seconds, and it's not just kid friendly, it's also adult friendly. So we are making this creamy chicken and egg noodles. To a pot on the stove, melt down 3 tablespoons of butter, then add in a cup of diced carrots, a diced onion. I didn't have an onion on hand, so I didn't add it in. But then a pound of cubed chicken breast, cook it for 3 minutes, and then add in another tablespoon of butter with 3 tablespoons of flour. We're kind of making like a roux. But once you stir that flour in, add in a tablespoon of minced garlic. Once your garlic is stirred for about 15 seconds, slowly add in 2 cups of chicken broth. You want to add it in slowly just so the flour, and everything combines well and there's no like clumpiness from the flour. Then you're going to add in your seasoning, so a half a teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of pepper, half a teaspoon of oregano, 1 teaspoon of paprika, a teaspoon of onion powder, and a teaspoon of garlic powder. Give this a really good stir. You're going to bring it up to a simmer. Let it simmer covered for about 15 minutes to thicken up slightly. And I am cooking my egg noodles just in a separate pot. I realized I needed more water, so I added a bit more water in there. I used about 8 ounces of egg noodles. But once my sauce is through simmering and my chicken's cooked through and the sauce is slightly thickened up, I added in a half a cup of heavy cream. I gave it a stir, then I added in my cooked egg noodles. Let this cook for a couple minutes, and then you could serve this up. Like I said before, in the past few weeks weeks, I have made this 3 times. It is that good. My little ones absolutely love it. It is very easy to throw together, and it is really good. As an adult, I actually get seconds for this one too. Same with my husband. It truly is that good. It is rich, delicious, easy to throw together, and very affordable. I love it. Now we're making this taco pasta, and this taco pasta is the perfect recipe to have on hand. To a pot on the stove, add in a pound of ground beef, just break it up and cook it through. Then add in a tablespoon of butter. Once it melts down, add in 2 tablespoons of taco seasoning. Then add in a tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce. Just stir these 2 ingredients together so the taco seasoning, gets into the ground beef. After you give this a good stir, add in 1 cup of chicken broth. Then you're going to add in 1 cup of beef broth. After you're through adding your broths in, you're going to add in 1 can of diced tomatoes with green chilies. It's basically like a can of Rotel, but just like a cheaper version. Then 2 tablespoons of tomato paste, 1 cup of milk, a half a pound of elbow pasta. Give this a stir. Let it simmer on your stove for about 10 minutes. You basically just need to cook the pasta at this point. Once my elbows were tender, I just added in 1 cup of Colby Jack cheese. Now I'm stirring that cheese in. You could serve it up once the cheese is melty. If you want to make this dairy-free, just don't add the cheese in. And then instead of adding 1 cup of milk, just add in another cup of broth or water. Top it with your favorite toppings. This is a total winner dinner, especially during like the fall and winter. This is just a delicious, delicious meal. Now we're making mom's pot roast. That's at least what we like to call it in my house. I grew up on this pot roast when I was younger, and it's just the best, easiest pot roast. It's comfort food to the max for me. But to your slow cooker, add in a half of a sliced yellow onion, and then you're going to add a large chuck roast over the top. I've been seeing chuck roast on sale occasionally at my stores, so I've been buying them and sticking them in my freezer. Anyway, over the top of that, you're going to add a brown gravy seasoning packet, and then a ranch seasoning packet along with a zesty Italian dressing seasoning packet. This is so flavorsome. And then over that, you're going to add 4 cups of sliced carrots, or you could use larger carrots. You could use baby carrots, and then add the rest of that sliced onion, and then 4 medium russet potatoes peeled and cut into larger chunks. 2 cups of beef broth. Cook this on low for about 8 hours. Your house is going to be smelling just the coziest it will ever be smelling. Serve this up. This roast is so tender. Just cook it until it is like fall apart, buttery soft like this. Those veggies are absolutely tender, and they are the most flavorsome slow cooker veggies you will ever make. This is a good one. Now we're getting started on this lasagna skillet, and I've been making this for years and years. To a pot on the stove, add in a pound of sausage. You could use any type of sausage. You could even use ground beef if you'd like. Just break it up and cook it through. Once you do have your sausage cooked through, you will want to remove any excess grease from your pot. And then once it's cooked through, just add in 2 cups of chicken broth, or you could add in beef broth. Add in a dash of salt, and then I added in way too much pepper. I opened up the wrong side, and as you see, a lot of it dumped out, but it still tasted good. I also added in a half a teaspoon of Italian seasoning, half a teaspoon of garlic powder and onion powder. Now add in 24 ounces of marinara sauce. You could use any brand or any type you like. Next, add in a 14-ounce can of diced tomatoes, then add in 3/4 pound of lasagna noodles. You want to make sure you break those noodles up super small. The smaller you break them, the better. That way they'll cook quicker, and then it's easier to take a bite of the noodle that way, and then get some of the sauce and the sausage. It just works out best. But add your noodles right in there, and you're going to stir this well. Scrape all those flavorful bits off the bottom of your pot. Put the lid on top and let this simmer on low for about 20 minutes, stirring it occasionally. Now I'm getting started on the cheesy mixture. This is my favorite part. To a bowl, add in your cottage cheese, or you could use ricotta cheese, mozzarella cheese, and 1/4 cup of Parmesan cheese. Give this cheesy mixture a really good stir. Now I'll just set it to the side. If you notice the liquid line gets too low while it is simmering, just add a half a cup more water in at a time until your lasagna is tender. Lasagna does tend to take a little bit longer to simmer other than like spaghetti or, other pasta. But once your lasagna is tender, your house will be smelling so good at this point. This recipe is on page 123 in my cookbook. It's in the one pot section, and there's 8 different sections in my cookbook with over 100 recipes. But now just add that cheesy mixture right into your pot, give it a stir. Once the cheese melts down, you could serve this up. This lasagna skillet is one of my favorite recipes to make just because I love making it when I don't feel like putting in the effort of making like a whole pan of lasagna. You can make this in just one pot on your stove. It tastes identical to regular lasagna, but it is way less effort. My husband absolutely loves it. He'll eat bowls and bowls of it. Now we're getting started on my favorite zucchini boats. I absolutely love making these. To a pan on the stove, add in a pound of ground turkey or any ground meat, a diced yellow onion, a dash of salt and pepper, then a half a teaspoon of Italian seasoning. Break that ground turkey up and you're going to cook it through. This recipe is absolutely delicious. I've done it in the past with Italian sausage and it just is amazing. Anyway, over to a cutting board, I am going to slice 4 zucchinis in half lengthwise, and then I'm going to scoop out the inside of the zucchinis. The very first time I made this years ago, I thought this was going to be so hard to scoop the inside out. It's really easy to do. You just scoop it out with a spoon, and there you go. Very simple to do so. Now that my ground turkey's cooked through, I'm adding in 24 ounces of pasta sauce, and then you're going to give this a stir, let it cook together for a couple minutes, and then if you're a cheese fan, add in a half a cup of mozzarella cheese. If you're not a cheese fan, just don't add the cheese in, but give this a stir, let the cheese melt down. Now over to my large baking dish, I'm going to spray it with nonstick spray, and then if you're wondering what I'm doing with the inside of the zucchinis, like the leftover zucchini filling, I'm actually going to use it in a couple days for some spaghetti sauce. I'll just add it into my spaghetti sauce and it's going to make the spaghetti sauce go further, so I'll just keep it in my fridge. But I added the zucchinis into my baking dish. Now I'm going to scoop some of that ground turkey pasta sauce mixture right inside. I found it's easiest to do so with a cookie scoop. Anyway, over the top I'll sprinkle with a little bit more mozzarella cheese. I'll cover this with foil, bake it in a preheated oven to 350 degrees for 25 minutes. Then uncovered for an additional 10 minutes. These are absolutely delicious. I started making these about 4 years ago. I was super skeptical about them at first. I kind of thought it was an odd combination. I promise, just try these once and you will love them. I serve this with a side salad, and for the dressing I use some of this Skinny Girl balsamic vinaigrette. I'm basically almost out of this dressing. I've been loving it recently. It's so good. Now we're making my potato lentil wraps, or you could call them burritos. To a large pot on the stove, add in your tablespoon of olive oil, then a half of a diced onion. You could use any type of onion that you like or have on hand. I'm using a white onion today. Now we're rinsing our lentils. For this recipe, you want to use about a half a pound of lentils, preferably green or brown lentils. Rinse them off. I like to rinse them just to remove any debris, dust, or small rocks that might be present, just due to the way that lentils are grown and harvested. It might be on it. Also, it helps reduce foaming during cooking. But once your onion is tender, add in a tablespoon of minced garlic, give it a little stir. Now you're going to add in your 3 large peeled and diced russet potatoes. Just toss them right in there, and then after that add in about 3.5 cups of water, or you could use any type of broth. Add in those rinsed lentils, and then I like to go crazy with the seasonings. I add in a lot of seasonings just because the lentils and potatoes tend to be on the blander side. So I add in a teaspoon of salt, pepper, onion powder, garlic powder, oregano, chili powder, cumin, and paprika. These seasonings mixed together for these burritos are phenomenal. I started making these burritos when my husband and I were struggling to make ends meet, and I've been making them since. I especially like to batch make them. But I let this simmer on my stove for about 25 minutes. If you do notice that it needs a little bit more liquid just to help those lentils become tender, add in some more water or broth until those lentils do become tender. And then at about 25 minutes, my lentils were to the tenderness that I like them to be. I promise this doesn't look look like the most beautiful thing in the world, but let me tell you, it is a powerhouse of flavor and definitely full of protein. Grab your tortillas. I do recommend using larger tortillas just so you could really fill them up. Just fill up your tortillas, roll them up. This is something my husband and I love doing. It really makes these basic, inexpensive burritos taste like super high-end burritos. We like to put a little oil in our pan after we roll up the burritos, and then we just like to crisp up the outside of the tortillas. Tortillas do tend to be like on, the boring side. Sometimes they could be a little bit chewy, but if you crisp up the outside, it makes them taste so high-end. It makes them taste like you're at like a fancy restaurant. I love meal prepping these burritos. I actually made these to meal prep them and freeze them. So I definitely recommend doing that. We love eating these for lunch throughout the week just because they're full of protein. They won't leave you hungry in between meals, and they're so inexpensive. I definitely recommend crisping up the outside. It adds an element of flavor and just really makes them taste so delicious. You have to try these burritos. You could add any seasonings you like to them. You could add cheese or different veggies too. Now we're getting started on my all-time favorite loaded sheet pan quesadillas. So to a pan on the stove, add in a half of a diced onion. Also add in a pound of ground beef. Just break that ground beef up and cook it through. Once it's cooked through, just remove any excess grease from your pan. Then add in about 2 tablespoons of taco seasoning along with a half a cup of water. Give this a little stir. Let it simmer for a couple minutes. Then go ahead and add in about 1/4 cup of salsa along with 15 ounces of drained corn. Then add in 15 ounces of drained and rinsed black beans. I do want to let you know, if you don't want to use ground beef, you could always use ground chicken, ground turkey, or really any meat substitute that you like. Let it simmer for a couple minutes. Now grab a sheet pan and then place about 5 tortillas on the bottom of your sheet pan. Then you're going to place one in the center. You want the tortillas to slightly overlap. Also, open your cookbook because you will find this recipe on page 84, and it is in the sheet pan section. But over the top of the tortillas, you're going to place like the taco mixture. You want to make sure you spread that out super evenly. Then over the top of the taco mixture, you're going to sprinkle cheese. If you're not a cheese fan, you of course just don't have to add the cheese over the top. Once you're through adding the cheese, place 1 tortilla in the center. Then you're going to fold in the edges of the tortillas, kind of like overlapping on the sides. Fold it in tightly. You don't want like the meat mixture or the cheese exposed, otherwise it might like fall out. But place a second sheet pan over the top. Make sure it's greased on the bottom, and that will help it get super crispy in the end. Bake this in a preheated oven to 425 degrees for about 20 minutes. Your sheet pan quesadilla will turn out so good. Top it with your favorite toppings. It's like crunchy on the outside. The center is just so delicious. You could fill your quesadillas with anything you like. You can make this like a chicken quesadilla. I've done that in the past. You could seriously add anything in these quesadillas. They're 10 out of 10. Now we're getting started on this 1-pan barbecue chicken dinner. This one is a total fun one. So I have about 1.5 pounds of golden potatoes. I cut them into wedges. I do find that wedges work best for this recipe, but you could cut them into like smaller pieces or like French fries if you'd like. But I set the wedges to the side. In this bowl, I just added 1 cup of barbecue sauce. Next, add in a half of a lime, just juice it right in there. Then add in a tablespoon of honey. This is really going to elevate the barbecue sauce. Give it a little stir. Once everything is combined, just set it to the side. Now pull out a sheet pan. I did line mine with foil just for easy cleanup. Add the wedges down and then place about 4 ears of corn around the wedges. This dinner is so good and it's really fun to make. Now drizzle on about 3 tablespoons of olive oil, drizzle all over the potatoes and the corn. Then sprinkle a dash of salt and pepper all over the top. Give this a little stir. You want the potatoes super coated in the oil and the seasonings. Now place your chicken in the center of the sheet pan. I'm using 4 thin pieces of chicken breast, but you could use like thicker chicken if you'd like. Just pour the barbecue sauce over the top of the chicken. Make sure it's coated on both sides. This is going to bake in a preheated oven to 375 degrees for about 35 minutes, or until those wedges are like fork tender and your chicken is completely cooked through. This one is definitely one of my all-time favorite sheet pan dinners. Those potato wedges are like perfectly tender. The corn is cooked to perfection. And then that barbecue sauce mixture over the top of the chicken. It's like a little bit sweet, but so bold and delicious. I always start making this one once like the weather starts warming up outside. It's absolutely delicious. Now we're making this chicken stuffing zucchini casserole, and it's one of my favorites. We're getting started on the cream of soup substitute first. So to a pan on the stove, I melted down 3 tablespoons of butter. Then I added in 3 tablespoons of flour. Whisk that flour in until it's kind of like a golden brown color. That is going to make the flour so it doesn't taste like flour. It's really going to add a lot to this recipe. But after you're through whisking it in, you're going to add in 3/4 cup of chicken broth and 1/2 cup of milk. Give it a good whisk. Let this simmer on your stove for about 2 to 3 minutes until it slightly thickens up. This is an amazing substitute for any cream of soup. So if you don't like buying cream of soups at the store, you could totally do this. You could add different flavorings to this. You could add like mushrooms for cream of mushroom soup. You could do whatever you'd like with this. I added a dash of salt and pepper and kept it simple for today. But to a big bowl, add in a box of stuffing mix. It's a 6-ounce box. Then after you add that in, you're going to add in 4 tablespoons of melted butter. Give this a stir, coat the stuffing mix in the butter. Now you're going to remove 3/4 cup of the stuffing mix and you're going to set it to the side. This is going to be perfect for the topping. Now into that stuffing mix, you're going to add the cream of soup substitute in, or you could just add in a normal 10-ounce can of cream of chicken soup or any cream of soup you'd like if you don't want to make your own on the stove. But I often get questions like how to make it, so that's why I shared it with you today. But this recipe is also on page 64 in my cookbook. It's in the casserole section. Now I just added in 2 diced zucchini, 1/2 of a diced yellow onion, along with 4 cups of cooked shredded chicken, 1/2 cup of sour cream, or you could use plain Greek yogurt. Then add in 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1/2 teaspoon of pepper, and give this a really super duper good stir. Pull out any larger baking dish or casserole dish, spray it with non-stick spray, then add the casserole right in there, spread it out. You could sprinkle the top of the casserole with just about any type of cheese if you're a cheese fan like me. Believe it or not, for this night, I was totally out of cheese. I didn't have any cheese on hand, so I didn't use any cheese for this casserole. It will turn out delicious, you have to trust me, but sprinkle the top with the remaining stuffing mix, bake it in a preheated oven to 350 degrees for 40 minutes. Your house is going to be smelling so cozy and delicious at this point. You could serve it up. You could also add any vegetables that you would like into this casserole. You don't have to add zucchini, but zucchini just works really well with it. This casserole is so good. I make it often for my family. It is just so scrumptious. I'm sure you'll love it just as much as we do. Now we're making this orzo with chicken sausage and broccoli. Just trust me, it is so good. I'm beginning by cutting my chicken sausage into kind of like half moons like this. I'll set it to the side. We're going to work on the broccoli now. So I have 1 large head of broccoli right here. I'm cutting it into smaller florets. Over to the pan on my stove, I'm adding in 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Once my oil is hot, I'll add the sausage right in there, and you're going to want to sear the sausage on each side. It's going to create a lot of added flavor, and it's just going to be extra good like that. So after the sausage is a nice golden brown color, I added in the broccoli along with a tablespoon of minced garlic. I'm going to cook this all together for about 4 to 5 minutes. After that time, my broccoli is starting to get tender, and then I'm going to add in about 1 cup of uncooked orzo. If you don't typically cook with orzo, the best way I could describe it to you is kind of like a mixture between pasta and rice. It really is good. But then I added in 2 1/3 cup of chicken broth. I gave this a stir, scraping all the flavorful bits off the bottom of my pan. This cooked on low, simmering for about 10 to 12 minutes with the lid on. I did stir it often while it was simmering just so nothing stuck to the bottom of my pan. But once my orzo was tender, I added in my 1/2 cup of Parmesan cheese. Once the cheese melted, I served this up. This is such a great balanced meal. You got your veggie in there and the protein. Also, this just cooks on one pan on the stove. It really can't be any easier than that. We are making this easy baked chuck roast. This is my go-to dinner when we're having people over for dinner. And you know, I don't want to make anything extravagant. I just want a delicious, simple meal. Spray a 9x13 baking dish with non-stick spray. Add your large chuck roast right in there. Then you're going to add in 1 cup of beef broth. You're also going to add in a dash of salt and pepper. Just season both sides of the chuck roast with that salt and pepper. This is going to come out so delicious in the end. You have to trust me. You don't really need to add in any more seasonings than this. I've added in like a beefy onion soup packet in the past, and that's also super good, but salt and pepper is just honestly my favorite. After you're through with that, cover the top with foil, and then this recipe is in my newest cookbook. It is on page 142. I have over 150 recipes in my new cookbook, but bake this in a preheated oven to 325 degrees for about 4 hours. It will be fall apart tender. The edges will be like a little bit crispy. We served ours over a bed of mashed potatoes with a side salad on the side. You need to try this one. This is the extra special recipe that comes from my mom. I like to call it her crunchy, cheesy, no-peak chicken. So to a bowl, add in 2 10-ounce cans of cream of soup. I'm using cream of mushroom soup with roasted garlic. The garlic gives it added great flavor. Then I also added in 1/3 cup of milk. Give this a really good whisk until everything is combined and it kind of looks like one ingredient. Now set that bowl to the side, pull out another bowl, add in a 6-ounce box of stuffing mix. Then you're going to add in 1/4 cup of melted butter and 3/4 cup of chicken broth. Give this a stir so that stuffing mixture absorbs the broth and the butter. Now you're going to set this to the side, pull out a larger baking dish, and into that baking dish, you're going to add between 2 to 3 pounds of chicken tenderloins. This recipe is also so easy to double or half. Season the chicken with a dash of salt, pepper, and paprika. Now over the top of the chicken, you're going to add that creamy mixture. Just spread it over the top pretty evenly. And then over the top of that mixture, you're going to add slices of Colby Jack cheese, or you could really use any type or any brand of cheese. And then over the top of the cheese, you're going to add the stuffing mixture. Cover this tightly with foil. Bake it in a preheated oven to 350 degrees for 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, uncover the foil and bake it for an additional 25 minutes. Once this came out of the oven, it was just smelling like home to me. We always used to serve this over a bed of white rice, but you could serve it over mashed potatoes, cauliflower rice, really anything that you like. When I was younger and my mom would ask me what I'd like for dinner for like special occasions or my birthday, I would almost always request this. It is just so comforting and delicious to me. And then sometimes in between the layer of cheese and stuffing, she'd put sliced tomatoes. Now we're making this $1 million chicken casserole, and I can make this one over and over again and we just won't get tired of it. To a big bowl, add in 4 cups of cooked shredded chicken, 4 ounces of softened cream cheese. Make sure it's softened. That way it's easier to stir in. Then a 10-ounce can of cream of chicken soup, or cream of anything will work. Then 1 cup of cottage cheese. Cottage cheese adds a lot of great protein. Then 1/3 cup of sour cream. For the seasonings, a 1/2 teaspoon of onion powder, 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder, and a teaspoon of paprika. Give this a good stir. Get all of those ingredients combined well together. Then you're going to pull out a sleeve of Ritz crackers, or you could use any crackers, or you could even use croutons. Just crush them up into smaller pieces just like this. Now you're going to pull out a bowl and you're going to put those crackers right into the bowl. You're also going to add in about 4 tablespoons of melted butter. Stir those 2 ingredients so those crackers get coated in the butter. Pull out a casserole dish and spray it with nonstick spray. Add the casserole right into your baking dish. Then you're going to sprinkle the Ritz cracker mixture over the top. Make sure you sprinkle it evenly over the top. Then you're going to bake it in a preheated oven to 350 degrees for about 35 minutes, or until the casserole is beautifully bubbling. And then those crackers over the top are a beautiful golden brown color. Then you could serve it up. This casserole is so warm, cozy, and comforting. It is perfect for those cold days. I served it alongside a side of green beans. This casserole is absolutely phenomenal. My little ones can eat bowls and bowls of it. This is one of their favorite casseroles just because it really is so comforting and good. Now we're getting started on this rich tomato pasta. This one is a meatless meal, but you could easily add Italian sausage or chicken to it, or you could really add anything you'd like to it in that matter. But to a pot of boiling water, add in 8 ounces of any pasta. I'm using penne pasta today and cook it according to the package instructions. Now to this pan on my stove, we're getting started on the sauce. Add in 2 tablespoons of butter. Once your butter is melted, add in a tablespoon of minced garlic. Once the garlic is fragrant, it will take about 10 to 15 seconds. Add in a 14-ounce can of tomato sauce, followed by 2 tablespoons of tomato paste, 3/4 cup of heavy cream. The heavy cream is going to make it so rich and delicious. Then add in a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, a dash of pepper, then a teaspoon of Italian seasoning. You want to stir this super well so everything gets well incorporated and combined together and kind of like that tomato paste separates. But give it a stir, let it cook together and simmer for about 4 minutes, stirring it occasionally. It's going to turn into a beautiful golden color. But once your pasta is tender, just strain your pasta. Once you're through straining it, you're going to add that cooked pasta right into that pasta sauce. And then at that point, you could add in fresh spinach if you'd like. You could add in cooked chicken, cooked sausage. You could add in any veggies you'd like, but I'm just adding in 1/4 cup of Parmesan cheese for today. Just give it a good stir, let that cheese melt down, and then you could serve it up. I actually found this Green Goddess Ranch salad kit at Walmart. It says it's new, so that's why I'm showing you, but I made it up. It's kind of like a mini kit, so it serves about 1 to 2 people, so it's perfect for like a side salad, and it is fairly affordable, and it was good. So that's why I wanted to show you, but this pasta comes out super delicious every single time. We topped ours with a little bit of Parmesan cheese, and like I said before, you could add anything you like into that pasta. Also, that salad kit is really delicious and makes for a great easy side dish. Now we're getting started on this taquito casserole. This is kind of one of my go-to dinners that I love making, you know, when I don't know what I'm going to make for dinner and I have some pantry staples at my house. Spray a 9x13 baking dish with nonstick spray, then add a can of refried beans to the bottom. Just spread that can out, and then you're going to add some frozen taquitos over the top of the refried beans. I'm using the chicken and cheese taquitos, but you could use beef taquitos, you could use veggie taquitos, you could really use any taquitos you like. This recipe is also in my newest cookbook. If you were wondering if there's any of the same recipes from my first cookbook and my second cookbook, you know, none of them are the same. My new cookbook has all new recipes, and like I said, they're the easiest, like dump and go minimal ingredient recipes. Every single page has a high quality photo. Anyway, now pour about 20 ounces of enchilada sauce over your taquitos. I'm using red enchilada sauce. I've used green enchilada sauce in the past, and that's equally as delicious. Bake it on 400 degrees for 25 minutes, then sprinkle 2 cups of Mexican style cheese over the top. Bake it for about 10 more minutes, and this will easily become one of your new favorite easy weeknight dinners. This dinner is easy to throw together. Like I said, just top it with anything you have on hand. It tastes like you spent hours and hours trying to make it, but secretly, you know, it's like one of the easiest dinners you could ever throw together. Now we're getting started on this chicken Parmesan casserole, so grab a 9x13 baking dish, spray it with nonstick spray. This one's also a dump and go casserole, so it is just easy and delicious. Dump your 12 ounces of penne pasta into your baking dish, or you could use bow tie pasta or really any shaped pasta. Then add in 3 cups of pasta sauce, or, you know, 1 jar of pasta sauce or a can of pasta sauce. Season it with salt, Italian seasoning, and pepper. After you season it with your seasonings, you're going to add in 3 cups of water. I just added water into the jar of pasta sauce and gave it a little shake, you know, to get out any excess pasta sauce in my jar. Now I'm adding in my 1 pound of cubed chicken. This is uncooked chicken. Yes, you want to make sure you use uncooked chicken for this recipe. Give it a stir, cover it with foil, bake it on 400 degrees for 40 minutes. After 40 minutes, give it a little stir, remove the foil, and then you are going to sprinkle on 1 cup of mozzarella cheese, 1/3 cup of Parmesan cheese, and 1 cup of panko breadcrumbs. Just sprinkle that over the top. My favorite are the Italian style panko breadcrumbs, but the plain will also work. Either way, but bake this for 15 more minutes and you will get a delicious easy chicken Parmesan casserole. The topping is one of my favorite parts, that like crunchy panko with the cheese. This one is phenomenal. If you haven't tried this casserole yet, please do. I think you'll like it. And then I did serve this alongside a Caesar salad. I have just been loving Caesar salad recently. I kind of forgot how good it really is. Anyway, I served it with Caesar salad. I created this oatberry cobbler a couple years ago at this time of year, so every year at this time of year I crave it and I can't keep it from you. So we're making this oatberry cobbler that is just delicious. To a 9x13 baking dish, add your 40 ounces of mixed berries. I don't recommend frozen strawberries though. I found that those don't work as well for this recipe. Then add on about 1/4 cup of quick oats, a tablespoon of brown sugar, then add on 1 box of French vanilla cake mix. Just sprinkle it over the top and then kind of spread that cake mix out. Over the top of the cake mix, you're going to add 1/4 cup more quick oats. Over the top of the quick oats, you're going to add a tablespoon more brown sugar. This is just what really elevates this recipe. Then over the top of that, you're going to add about 3/4 cup to a cup of thin sliced butter. With dumped desserts with cake mix, kind of like this recipe, you want to make sure you spread that butter out super thin and you cut it pretty thin just so it gets all over the top of that cake mix. Otherwise, the cake mix is going to come out kind of like floury and dry. It kind of, won't cook as well. So make sure you cut that butter thin, put it all over the top of the cake mix. That way the cake mix will set up and it won't, just be dry in the end. But this baked on a preheated oven to 350 degrees for 45 minutes. Your guests will think you spent hours and hours trying to make this. This is one of my favorite desserts ever. Now we're getting started on this honey mustard chicken, and despite the mistake that I made, this one turned out so good. Add your chicken into your slow cooker. Next, season it with a dash of salt and pepper. Now you want to add in either 1/2 cup of chicken broth or water. I totally forgot to add that in and my chicken ended up being kind of dry in the end, but just make sure you add it in. Now that my chicken's finished cooking, I'm getting started on the honey mustard sauce. So into a bowl, add 1/4 cup of honey with 8 ounces of French's Dijon mustard. Whisk those two ingredients together super well. This honey mustard sauce is so good. But now that my chicken's finished cooking, as you see, it's a little bit dry. I can't believe I forgot to add that liquid in there. My fault. But just shred up your chicken, then add that honey mustard sauce right in there. Give it a super duper good stir, and you could serve this over rice. You could serve it over mashed potatoes. You could serve this honey mustard chicken alone. But what I'm doing is I'm serving it in buns with a little bit of Colby Jack cheese over the top. I just broiled this in my oven for a couple of minutes with the cheese on, and then I served it up. I do also want to let you know, if you serve this in King's Hawaiian rolls, that would be so delicious from the sweetness from those rolls, and you don't have to serve this with cheese on the top. I know not everybody's a big cheese fan like me, but after this is finished broiling in your oven, you could serve this up. The only things I would do differently next time is add the liquid into the slow cooker. Also, I would make extra of that honey mustard sauce to drizzle it over the top of like the cheese in the end, so it's extra saucy. But this turned out so good. If you're a honey mustard fan, you will love this. My husband absolutely thought they were amazing, and I really love them too. Now we're getting started on these Crockpot barbecue ribs, and whenever we have a family get together, I'm always asked to bring these just because they're that good. We're getting started on the seasoning rub first. So into a bowl, add in 3 tablespoons of paprika, add in your salt and pepper, then add in 3 tablespoons of brown sugar. This seasoning mixture is simple, but it is so delicious. Give it a really good stir. Now you're going to pull out your ribs, and then this is totally optional, but I do like doing this with ribs. I like to remove the membrane on the back of the ribs, and if you've never done it before, I'll show you how to do it now. Grab a butter knife, and all you have to do is put it under the membrane and pull it up just like this. This is going to make your ribs so much extra tender in the end. Your ribs won't be chewy. Sometimes, there is that like chewy membrane on ribs, but this really takes care of it. But this is also optional. If you don't want to do it, you definitely do not need to to do it at all. I've done it both ways and it turns out just fine. Now sprinkle that seasoning rub on both sides of the ribs and kind of rub it in just like this. Now you're going to brush 1 cup of barbecue sauce on both sides of the ribs as well. You could use any type or any brand of barbecue sauce you like. I'm just using like the cheap one from Walmart. But after you are finished brushing the barbecue sauce on both sides of the ribs, you're going to place the ribs right into your slow cooker. You'll place them in your slow cooker standing upright with the meaty side against the inside wall of the slow cooker. It might seem a little odd, but just trust me. Pour 1/4 cup of apple cider vinegar in your slow cooker and cook it on low for about 6 to 7 hours. Partway through cooking, one of my little ones unplugged it for about 3 hours, but the ribs still turned out delicious in the end. Despite one of my little ones thinking she was so funny by pulling a prank on me and unplugging my slow cooker for hours, they still turned out super tender. I was a little worried they wouldn't be tender in the end, but they were super tender. Just pour some barbecue sauce on the top and the end, but they're absolutely delicious. You have to cook them standing upright like that. That makes them extra tender in my opinion. But we served them with mashed potatoes and some corn on the side. These are 10 out of 10. You need to try these ribs. Now we're making this deliciously easy beef stroganoff. So you're going to want to add about 2 tablespoons of oil to your pan on the stove. I'm using vegetable oil, and then you're going to want to use between 3 to 6 pounds of chuck roast or tender roast. Today I'm using tender roast just because it was on sale at my store this week, and it's a little bit leaner than chuck roast, so I actually do prefer tender roast, as long as it's cheaper than chuck roast at the time. But I'm just searing this on both sides. I seasoned it with salt and pepper, and the reason why I am searing it is just because it does create a rich caramelized crust on the outside, and it does build a deeper flavor. But if you don't have time to sear your meat, you certainly don't have to. I don't always sear my meat just because, sometimes you just don't have a moment to in the morning, and that's fine. So sear your meat if you have time, otherwise don't feel like you have to. Now into this bowl, I added 2 cups of beef broth, a packet of brown gravy mix, a tablespoon of minced garlic, and a tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce. Just give this a little whisk, until everything is combined and the brown gravy mix is dissolved. Now right into your slow cooker, you're going to add your roast and then add 8 ounces of sliced brown mushrooms, as long as you're a mushroom fan, over the top, and then add 1 diced yellow onion along with the gravy mix. Cook this on low for about 8 hours, and then after 8 hours of cooking, your house is going to be smelling so warm, cozy, and delicious. Just shred up your meat and remove any larger fatty pieces if you have any, and then stir in about 3/4 cup of sour cream. And then after you're through stirring that sour cream in, you're just going to boil up about 12 ounces of egg noodles. These are the egg noodles that I'm using. You could really use any egg noodles, or really any noodles in general. Just cook those up in a pot on the stove. And then once your egg noodles are tender, you are just going to stir those egg noodles right into your slow cooker. Let those egg noodles get coated in the sauce, and then you could serve this gorgeous dinner up. I often get requests for child-friendly or kid-friendly dinners, and this one is definitely one that my little ones absolutely loved. If your little ones don't like mushrooms, just take the mushrooms out. But this one is so delicious, and like I said, my little ones loved it, my husband loved it, and I loved it too. We got snow in our mountains last night, so I've been craving this Zuppa Toscana soup. It's just so warm and cozy. To my cutting board, I'm dicing a yellow onion, and I am just cutting about 4 russet potatoes in half, and then I'm also thinly slicing them just like this. I'm leaving the skin on, but you could remove the skin if you'd prefer that. Now over to a pan on the stove, I'm adding 1 pound of sausage in there. I'm also going to be adding my onion that I just diced in my pan as well. Just break that sausage up, and you do want to cook it through. And then once you do have your sausage cooked through, like the recipe before, for the lasagna soup, you do want to remove the excess grease because you don't want your soup to have extra grease in it. So just remove some excess grease from your sausage. Then you're going to add the sausage and onions right into your slow cooker along with about 4.5 cups of chicken broth. Add those potatoes in there along with a teaspoon of salt and a half a teaspoon of pepper. This recipe is so easy to throw together. It doesn't have any like complicated, strange ingredients. A lot of these ingredients, you know, are just simple ingredients. But just give this a stir, let it cook on low for about 5 to 6 hours. You basically want the potatoes just to be fork tender. And then once your potatoes are fork tender and the cooking time is up, just stir in about 4 cups of fresh chopped kale and about 3/4 cup of heavy cream. Like I said, this recipe is very simple. Give this a stir, and then after about 20 more minutes of cooking, you want that kale to wilt down. You could serve this up. We topped ours with a little bit of fresh Parmesan cheese and parsley just to make it look pretty. The soup is so warm, cozy, and delicious. Like I said, we just got snow on our mountain, so I'm definitely going to be making this one on repeat all, you know, season long. It's a good one. We're making this cheesy chicken broccoli casserole. This casserole is so warm and cozy. It is just really good. So to a bowl, add in a pound of cooked shredded chicken. Any cooked shredded chicken will work. 1 cup of chopped up broccoli, a half a cup of shredded cheddar cheese, 1/3 cup of sour cream. You could also use like low fat sour cream, or you could use like plain Greek yogurt. And then a tablespoon of ranch seasoning, a dash of salt and pepper, and to give this mixture a stir. You could also use like mixed vegetables in this if you don't want to use like broccoli, but I'm using 2 cans of crescents for this recipe. Just pull the triangles apart, and then you're going to add a little bit of that chicken broccoli mixture in, and then roll it up just like this. Add it to a greased baking dish. I'm just using like a large baking dish. It's an oval baking dish, but you could also use like any 9x13 baking dish. And then after you're finished rolling up all of your crescent triangles, you're going to bake this in a preheated oven to 350 degrees for about 10 minutes. While it's baking away, I'm getting started on kind of like the sauce that goes over the top. It's 1 can of cream of chicken soup along with 2/3 cup of milk. Just trust me, give this a whisk, and then once this is out of the oven, you're going to pour this sauce all over the top of the casserole, and then over the top of the sauce, you're going to add 1 cup of shredded cheddar cheese if you're a cheese fan like me. This will continue to bake in your oven for an additional 30 to 35 minutes or until the top is golden brown, just like this. This is a really easy throw together dinner. My little ones enjoyed this one. They really loved it. It came together in minutes, and it's just a super easy dinner. This one is for my meatless meal friends. We are making minestrone soup. This is my favorite minestrone soup. I can't believe I haven't made it in forever either. I need to make it more often, but to your slow cooker, add a diced yellow onion, 4 large carrots sliced, 4 ribs of celery sliced, tablespoon of minced garlic, 28 ounces of diced tomatoes, 2 tablespoons of tomato paste, and then add in 4 cups of vegetable broth. Then you're going to add in a 1/4 cup of sun-dried tomatoes. I really think those sun-dried tomatoes just elevate this recipe a lot. Add in a half a teaspoon of salt, 1/4 a teaspoon of pepper, and then 2 bay leaves. The bay leaves add a lot of great added flavor, and then a teaspoon of oregano. Give this a stir, and you're going to let this cook on low for about 7 hours. Of course, nothing really needs to cook through except for those veggies, but you really just want those flavors to merge together. Once the cooking time is up, just remove those bay leaves, just because, you know, nobody wants to accidentally eat a bay leaf. Anyway, now add in 1 can of drained and rinsed kidney beans, 1 can of drained and rinsed Great Northern beans, and then add in 1 zucchini that is cut into smaller pieces. Then add in 3 cups of fresh spinach along with 1.5 cups of dentellini pasta. This is just like smaller pasta, but give this a stir, let it cook for about 30 more minutes. You just want the pasta to cook through basically at this point, and you know, the zucchini to get tender, but let it cook, and then your house is just going to be smelling so good at this point. You could serve it up. This is such a delicious dinner. If you are making dinner for a larger crowd, this is definitely a great recipe because it does make quite a lot of soup. You could also half this recipe easily, or this minestrone soup freezes fantastically. So I freeze this often, and it reheats in the microwave or the stove great. So if you're just making dinner for one or, you know, a few people and you have leftovers, this one's a great meal to freeze. Now we're getting started on this pastrami sandwich bake, and before you go knocking this one's one of my favorite dinners ever. It is amazing. I have a 9x13 baking dish right here. I sprayed it with nonstick spray, add a Crescent sheet down, and then you're going to poke holes over the top just so it could breathe. Bake this in a preheated oven to 375 degrees for about 10 minutes. We're getting started on the special sauce now. This sauce is amazing. It's 3/4 cup of Thousand Island dressing, 1/4 cup of sauerkraut. Just mix those two ingredients together. Even if you're not the biggest sauerkraut fan in the world, this sauce is just fantastic. It's not overpowering that sauerkraut. It's just so good. Anyway, after this is out of the oven, place 5 slices of Swiss cheese over the top. Then over the top of the Swiss cheese, you're going to add your slices of pastrami. I went fancy and got like deli pastrami for this night. This dinner was just fantastic. Over the pastrami, just go ahead and add some of that special sauce. You're just going to spread it all over the top of the pastrami, just kind of like in an even layer. And then over the top of the special sauce, you're going to add 5 more slices of Swiss cheese. And then you're going to add a second Crescent sheet over the top of the Swiss cheese. Poke holes over the top of that Crescent sheet. And then this is totally optional, but I am sprinkling like caraway seeds over the top, or you could use sesame seeds. It's mainly just, to make it look nice. But bake this in your oven for about 15 to 20 more minutes, or until that top crescent is golden brown. Like I was saying before, that sauerkraut is not overpowering at all. It works so well with that Thousand Island dressing. This whole dinner is just so delicious. I was going to serve it alongside a side salad, but just didn't end up doing that. Anyway, you have to try this one if you like sandwiches. Now we're getting started on the slow cooker barbecue chicken. I was talking to a girl the other day and she had never made slow cooker barbecue chicken. So now that is what we are making. I have made this like 100 times. I love slow cooker barbecue chicken, but just add about 1.5 pounds of chicken breast to your slow cooker. Add about 1/3 cup of Italian dressing over the top and 1/2 cup of barbecue sauce. Any brand or any type of those two dressings and barbecue sauces will do, but cook this on low for about 5 to 6 hours. Once your cooking time is up, just shred your chicken up in your slow cooker, or you could shred it off to the side, then add it back in your slow cooker, to absorb the juices. But we served ours over a bed of mashed potatoes. We often serve this in a hamburger bun as like barbecue chicken sandwiches, but this barbecue chicken is so good. You have to try it like this. We also served it alongside of this Pizza Ranch salad kit. I saw this mini kit at the store. It's like a small mini size salad kit. It's really good. I was so intrigued by that Pizza Ranch flavor, but it was good. I'll be buying it again. Now we're getting started on this chicken and wild rice casserole, and if you're a wild rice fan like I am, you will absolutely love this one. So spray a 9x13 baking dish with nonstick spray. Now add in about 2 pounds of boneless, skinless chicken thighs. Add in a tablespoon of minced garlic along with a tablespoon of olive oil, then 1/4 of a yellow onion that you diced. Next, add in about 1.5 cups of uncooked wild rice. This is the brand I use. I really do like this brand. I do find that it cooks up really nicely, and it is just like a nice mix of wild rice. Now I'm adding in my uncooked Orzo. It's 1/2 cup of that. Then add in your seasonings. There's a lot of seasonings, but this is so good. A teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of Italian seasoning, 1/2 teaspoon of dried rosemary, 1/2 teaspoon of dried thyme, 1/2 teaspoon of pepper, and then 1/2 teaspoon of chili powder. After that, add in your 2 ribs of celery. Go ahead and slice them. Then add in 2 large carrots, dice those up. Then you're going to add in about 3 1/4 cup of chicken broth. Give this a stir to kind of mix everything together. Then you're going to place about 6 tablespoons of sliced butter all over the top. The butter is going to add a little bit of rich flavor. Cover this tightly with foil and bake this in a preheated oven to 400 degrees for about 65 minutes. After the cooking time is up, you're going to remove this from the oven, remove the foil, and you're going to bake it for about 20 more minutes or until that wild rice and orzo are tender. Wild rice is often considered the healthiest rice you could cook with just because there's so much to it. I've been trying to cook with it more often and it is still fairly affordable, and a little bit of wild rice goes a long way. This meal is so delicious. It is so herby. That chicken is nice and tender and juicy. This one is 10 out of 10. Now we're making this sausage and tomato gnocchi. If you've never tried gnocchi before, you just need to. Add a pound of Italian sausage to a pan on the stove, then add in 1 diced white onion. You're also going to add in some seasoning, so add in 1/2 teaspoon of salt and pepper, 1 teaspoon of Italian seasoning, and a teaspoon of garlic powder. Break up your sausage and cook it through. And then once your sausage is cooked through, just remove any excess grease from your pan. Next, add in 3/4 cup of heavy cream along with a tablespoon of minced garlic. Open up your cookbook because you will find this on page 116. It's actually just a delicious recipe and you'll find it in the one pot section. Anyway, also add in a 14-ounce can of diced tomatoes along with 4 cups of chopped spinach. 4 cups of chopped spinach might sound like a lot, but it wilts down so small and spinach is fairly affordable. Also add in 16 ounces of potato gnocchi. If you've never tried gnocchi, it's kind of like a soft Italian dumpling made from potatoes and flour. It is really good and my little ones really enjoy it. Give this a stir, break up the gnocchi, and let this simmer on your stove on a lower heat for about 15 minutes, stirring it occasionally, then stir in 1 cup of mozzarella cheese if you're a cheese fan like me, and then you can serve this delicious dinner up. I do want to let you know, if you're not a tomato fan, for most of these recipes today, you do not need to add in those diced tomatoes, but this is delicious. You could add ingredients to this, subtract ingredients, and like I said, if you've never tried gnocchi before, you really should try it. It's also very affordable at the grocery store and it's very filling. Now we're making this tomato Parmesan Orzo. I have been making this one for quite some time. Also, if you want to make a meatless meal, just don't add the chicken in this one, and this one's a great meatless meal. I've done that before. But to a pan on the stove, I added in a tablespoon of olive oil and butter. Once it melted down, I added in my pound of cubed chicken, a diced yellow onion, tablespoon of minced garlic, and then a teaspoon of salt and pepper, a teaspoon of garlic powder, onion powder, and then 2 teaspoons of paprika and Italian seasoning. This is so flavorsome. But just give this a stir and let the chicken cook on a higher heat for about 2 to 3 minutes. You don't need the chicken to be completely cooked through. You kind of just want the outside to be seared. And then once that chicken is to that point, you're going to add in 1 cup of uncooked orzo, 15 ounces of tomato sauce, 1 1/3 cup of chicken broth, a 1/2 cup of heavy cream. Give this a stir and you're going to let it simmer for about 10 minutes or until that orzo is no longer crunchy in the middle. While your orzo is simmering, just make sure you do stir this often just so that orzo doesn't stick and burn to the bottom of your pan. That's happened to me in the past, and nobody likes clumpy, sticky orzo. But once your orzo is tender, add in 1 cup of fresh chopped spinach and 1/3 cup of Parmesan cheese. Let the spinach wilt down. It will take about a minute, and then let that Parmesan melt down. Then you could serve it up. This is such a delicious quick dinner. Like I said before, if you're not a chicken fan, just don't add the chicken in, and there you go. You have a meatless meal. This one is so delicious. Also makes for a great freezer meal. Now we're making this Doritos taco pasta salad, and I'll be the first to admit, when I first thought about making this for the first time a while ago, probably about a year or 2 ago, I was very skeptical and I was thinking that I might not enjoy it very much. So just trust me on this one, it's amazing. Cook up about 16 ounces of rotini pasta. Now I'm breaking up a pound of ground beef. I cooked that ground beef through. Now I'm removing any excess grease from my ground meat. I'm just wiggling a paper towel around in there. I do want to let you know, if you don't want to use ground beef, you could use any meat substitute. You could use, if you like chicken or ground turkey, any of that would work. Now I'm adding in my taco seasoning and my water. Give this a stir. You want your ground beef to completely cool down at this point, so I took it off the heat. But now that my rotini's cooked through, you do also want this to be completely cooled down, so I'm just rinsing the rotini to make it cool down faster. The reason why you want your ground meat and your rotini cooled down is just so it doesn't, make the veggies soft in the end. But now I am getting started on my veggies. I'm just cutting them up. I'm dicing about 2 Roma tomatoes. I did want to use some avocados, but my avocados were nowhere near ripe, so so I'll set those to the side for now. But I sliced up some green onions and iceberg lettuce. Now put all your veggies into a large bowl. After you throw them into a large bowl, you're going to add in your cooked, cooled taco meat. Like I said before, just make sure your taco meat is cool just so it doesn't wilt down your veggies. Now I'm tossing in my cooled rotini pasta along with a drained and rinsed can of black beans and a drained can of corn. You could of course use any type of beans you like, and if you're not a corn fan, you don't have to add the corn in. And then I'm also adding in a cup and a half of crushed Doritos chips, just trust me. Then add in between 10 to 16 ounces of creamy French dressing. That French dressing with this recipe is just, oh, it's just so good. I can't even explain it to you. It's rich. This is definitely my top 2 favorite pasta salads of all time. It's up there in my rankings just because it's so good. It's so flavorsome. It's definitely not like your average boring bland pasta salad. This one is bursting with so much flavor. The crunchiness from the chips just makes it out of this world. I love anything French onion, so this French onion chicken potato casserole is totally up my alley. To a big bowl, add in 2 pounds of frozen diced hash browns, or you could use shredded hash browns. Also add in 1 can of cream of mushroom soup, 8 ounces of French onion dip. You could use any brand or any type of French onion dip. Also add in 3 cups of cooked shredded chicken, half a cup of shredded cheddar cheese, and then for the seasonings, a half a teaspoon of salt, a fourth a teaspoon of pepper, and then a half a teaspoon of onion powder, paprika, and Italian seasoning. I found that these seasonings are really good in this casserole. You could also use like Cajun seasonings or any seasonings like that if you'd like. Last thing I added in was a tablespoon of melted butter. Give this a super duper good stir. I know it doesn't look like much yet, but just trust the process. Spray a large baking dish with nonstick spray. Now add the casserole right in there, and you're going to spread it out until it's kind of in like an even layer, and then over the top you're going to want to add about a cup of French fried onions. Those French fried onions just elevate this casserole. They add like a little crispiness to the top. If you're not a French fried onion fan, you could always crush up Ritz crackers, butter them a little bit with melted butter, and use like buttered crackers. But I love French fried onions. Just cover this with foil, bake it covered for about 30 minutes on 350 degrees. After those 30 minutes, remove it from the oven, uncover it, and bake it for about 8 more minutes. Here is what your casserole will be looking like in the end. This is total comfort food to the max for me. Like I said before, this casserole is absolutely delicious, and if you're like a French fried onion fan, you will love it. This one is perfect for the fall and winter. It is just so warm and cozy. It tastes like it's giving you a hug. Now we're getting started on this chicken broccoli with a creamy sun-dried tomato sauce. Funny story about this one, but I kind of created this recipe years ago when we didn't have a ton of stuff in the fridge or pantry, and I was like craving sun-dried tomatoes. But to this pan on the stove, I added in my olive oil along with my cubed chicken. I seasoned my 1 pound of cubed chicken with a dash of salt, pepper, and Italian seasoning. Just cook the chicken for about 4 minutes. I have a 12-ounce bag of partially frozen broccoli right here. I'm just going to cut the broccoli into smaller pieces. This is just going to make the sauce a lot better in the end, so you don't have like large chunks of broccoli. But over to my chicken, now that it's like partially cooked, I added in a tablespoon of minced garlic. Just give it a little stir, and then after your garlic is fragrant, you're going to add in a half a cup of chopped sun-dried tomatoes. This is the brand I'm using. I do like this brand. I do find that it is very flavorsome. I'm also adding in a half a cup of chicken broth along with the chopped up broccoli. Like I said before, I kind of created this recipe randomly years ago, and it's hands down one of my all-time favorite recipes. It's so easy to make, but just give this a stir. Let the broccoli cook for about 6 minutes or until it is tender. Half a cup of heavy cream, also 1 cup of shredded Colby Jack cheese. Once the cheese is melty, you could serve this up. I'd have to say, I'll admit, this isn't the most beautiful dinner in the world, but holy smokes, this one's a good one. We often serve this over a bed of rice. I served it over white rice this time. You could serve this over egg noodles, cauliflower rice. Seriously, serve it over anything. It kind of creates like a sauce with that heavy cream. It is so rich and delicious. Like I said, this one's definitely a favorite one for us. You have to try it at some point. I have so many more videos like this on my channel, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next one. I'll see you there. Bye for now.